Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting for the City of International Falls for Monday, June 18, 2018. I would ask all present to please arise and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would ask the administrator to note the roll call with Councillor Brian Briggs absent due to his work schedule. That we would move to the agenda, and the agenda includes several additions. Under the consent agenda, approve the registration and expenses for the city attorney to attend a criminal justice institute. Under new business, to approve a resolution approving the Rainier Recreation Club for an exempt permit to sell raffle tickets. And also to approve a resolution approving the Rainier Recreation Club application for an exempt permit to sell raffle tickets on August 17th. So there's two items there, as I understand it. And then lastly, under correspondence, the Library Board of Trustees meeting minutes and agenda.
Where is that? Is it in our packet, original?
Yes, that's in our packet. That was the minutes were in our packet now. But they weren't noticed in the newspaper on Saturday.
Okay.
What is the council's pleasure with the agenda and the additions? Motion by Councillor Pearson to approve the agenda with the additions. Second by Councillor Jackson. Discussion on the agenda, the additions, or the motion. Hearing none, question.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion carries. The agenda is approved with the additions. Thank you. Then move to the approval of the minutes of the Monday, June 4, 2018 regular City Council meeting.
Moved.
Motion by Councillor Jackson to approve the minutes.
A second.
Second by Councillor Pearson. Question on the motion or the minutes? Hearing none, question?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
I would vote yes. The motion would carry and approval of the minutes. Thank you. We would move to the payment of claims and transfers. We have transfers to fund the general fund number 101 from the water and sewer fund $9,951.67 to the permanent improvement fund from the water and sewer fund $62,500 and to the reserve for capital outlay from the water and sewer fund $25,760.42. Accounts payable claims, City of International Falls claims of $665,733.82, Airport Commission claims of $6,088.31, and Library Board claims of $9,462.22. Your pleasure with the resolution to approve the transfers and the accounts payable.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Droba.
Second.
Second by Councillor Jackson to adopt the resolution approving the payment of claims and the transfers. Discussion on the motion, the resolution, or the transfers or payment of claims. Hearing none, question.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I would vote yes. Resolution is adopted and that approves the payment of claims and the transfers. Thank you. Go to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to approach the council at this time that is not on the agenda? There'll be an opportunity at the end of the meeting. We'll move down to old business. Item number 1 is to remove from the table approve the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities Memorandum of Agreement between Mesabi Range College and the International Falls Ambulance Service and authorize signatures.
I would move for removal from the table.
Motion by Councillor Droba to remove this from the table.
Second.
Second by Councillor Jacksaw. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. The item is removed from the table, so it's now before us. The agreement, the memorandum of agreement between the college and the ambulance service. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had distributed just at the outset of the meeting a revised agreement that we received late this afternoon from the state of Minnesota on behalf of the Mesabi Range College. And we have been working with them since April 3rd on making some changes to the professional liability language in the agreement, noting that we're not required to have specific professional liability insurance coverage, and actually our general or standard insurance coverage provided by the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust covers us for any tort liability that we might be laboring with them to come up with appropriate language. And last week the city attorney sat in a phone conference call conversation with me and their staff, and they've come to the conclusion and made some changes to the professional liability insurance. So in the new agreement, it's on page, should be page 4 or 5, and we ask that the word professional be removed. And then there's some other limits regarding tort liability that we have some statutory limits to our obligations for liability, and I might ask that the city attorney elaborate on this introduction, but I just distributed the form of the agreement that they just sent to us, and I believe the city attorney.
City Attorney.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Anderson's correct. If you look at page 5 of the new proposed language, they did make some changes. They removed the requirement that the city provide, and we're referred to as the facility in here, that the facility provide professional liability coverage. And we did also talk about limits because as a city, we have some statutory limits of $500,000 per person or 1.5 million per occurrence. And they changed that language on page 4 with regard to the limits, but they didn't on page 5. I think it's probably just a typo that they changed it in the one spot and not the other. But I think the new agreement would be fine if we corrected the limits that we're agreeing to provide to the same as it appears over on page 4, the $500,000 per person and $1,500,000 per occurrence. With that change, I would say that it would be appropriate for the council to approve this proposed contract.
I would approve, I would make a motion to approve the agreement with Minnesota State Colleges and Universities between Mesabi Range College and International Falls, with the change that the city administrator and attorney are suggesting. If they're agreeable, I say we move forward.
Second.
Okay, motion by Councillor Droba, second by Councillor Jacksaw to approve the agreement between the Minnesota State Colleges and University, Mesabi Range College, and City of International Falls with regard to use of the college and the authorization of signatures for that agreement based on the recommendation of the city administrator and the city attorney with regard to the limits of the liability insurance? Is it liability or is it the commercial general liability insurance
Yes.
on tort claims?
It's on page 5 there, what they call the comprehensive liability coverage. Second paragraph from the top.
And so you're recommending-
It says 2 million and 3 million. We want the language changed to 500,000 and 1,500,000 for the aggregate.
500,000 and 1,500,000.
Correct.
Okay. So accept the motion to move forward. Discussion.
We don't have a second.
Excuse me?
Was there a second?
Yes, second by Councilor Jackson. I want to go back to page 2. And under G, item G, where it speaks to the students are required to carry their own health insurance, and then it talks about the professional liability insurance if the professional liability insurance is not provided by the college. Just, I get confused here as to exactly what that is trying to tell me.
For the individual student, okay, the college is going to have their professional life for their instructors, and that's covered. But their policies are not going to cover the students. So as a part of this program, if they're interning or doing some hands-on things, if they mess up, they may want their own insurance. I doubt that any of them are going to get it. It's basically just a disclaimer telling them that they may not be covered if they are attempting to perform something that requires a certain amount of professional skill and things. They may or they may not. But I mean, I think it's just kind of a cover your bases disclaimer, for the students. I actually doubt that the students would be doing those kinds of things that could lead to professional liability, but it's certainly possible.
Then my question would be, if the students who are employees of the City of International Falls in the ambulance department, does our insurance cover them under that professional liability?
Our employees are covered, yes. Our EMTs and ambulance people, they're all covered under our package. And that's what, and Ken and I, we worked very closely with the league and the insurance people down there just to clarify all of this, as did the college. They've had these standard contract with a number, about 25 other cities, and nobody's ever picked up on it. But, I think maybe they didn't read the contract carefully enough before signing it. But all of the city employees would be covered, the city would be covered, the employees of the college that would be covered. What may not be covered is the student themselves.
The students being employees of International Falls, again, you're saying they are covered.
Well, they wouldn't be covered as students. They'd only be covered because they are our employees. They'd be covered under our employee coverage. I don't believe there's any student coverage provided by any of these policies. So the students, they're as a student, and I think this is just kind of putting them on notice that if they want their own professional liability coverage, they need to get it.
Raises questions that really don't need to be raised, frankly. I mean,
Chief Manassa, please.
Generally speaking, these students are never employees of the city while they're students, so.
Oh, they are not. I'm sorry. Okay.
This is a college program for EMTs and/or contacts to complete their school. is if we're looking to hire paramedics or EMTs that on them that they've rode with us before and this is how the college gets them out into the real world to get their contacts for their schooling. So they are not, as a student, they are not employed by the City of International.
And Chief, am I correct? They're probably observing more than anything else, aren't they?
Yeah, and I guess the only question I would raise to what you spoke about is if that's more of a work comp issue, if they were to get hurt while riding with us, if that's what the health insurance refers to.
No. They're talking about professional liability insurance. It'd be so if they did something that would be considered malpractice. But if you're just a student, you're not expected to have, certain abilities. I think where the liability would come in would be if, say, one of our EMTs or somebody allowed them to do more than what they were really trained to do, rather than just watching one of our EMTs do it. If, okay, you administer the shot this time or something, and they're doing it and they're not really licensed or trained to do it, the argument would probably be that EMT, that supervisor, was negligent in letting them do more than they should have. They should have just been observing rather than hands-on performing the service. And so I think that's what this aspect of the contract is just making clear, that we're not providing professional liability insurance for them. If they want it, they would have it. But I would say, they don't, like when somebody's going to medical school, they don't have malpractice insurance as a student because they're learning and training and now when they're interning and they actually have a license, my guess is that at that point they've got some professional liability insurance. I think that there would be coverage, but not for that person themselves. I think the coverage, if there was a loss, would be that one of the supervisors let that student do more than they should have under those circumstances. And the attorneys always, they chase the insurance. If there's some student that doesn't have any money, they're not going to go after them or sue them because they never collect it, And
then I guess for Chief Manassa, so none of our present paramedics or EMTs would be doing continuing education here and would be covered by this also?
Not under this contract, I don't believe.
Very good.
More so for the ride-along students that are for education.
Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, then again, the motion is then to approve the agreement between Mesabi Range College and the city, authorizing the signatures, and that the limits of the liability would be at $500,000 and $1,500,000. No further discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. There being all four members of the council present and for that motion, the motion carries and the agreement is approved. Thank you. Item number 2 under old business is another item that has been tabled, and that's to consider the amendment to the donation agreement with the Donahue Trust to accept a $5,000 donation for costs to construct a parking lot, modify the walking trail designation, and approve the proposed memorial. Is there a motion to remove that from the table?
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Droba to remove this item from the table. Second by Councilor Jacksaw. Discussion. Question.
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote no. There being 3 for the motion to remove and 1 against, the motion carries. The item, consider the amendment to the donation agreement with the Donahue Trust, is presently before us. City Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, Council, we have, at the direction of the Council, I've negotiated an amendment with Matt Donahue, trying to incorporate and follow through on the recommendations of the committee that we had. And this is an agreement that he has indicated he would sign on behalf of the trust. It, I think, benefits the city over what had been expected. I think both for last year and this year we had donated or had budgeted $7,000 each year for anticipating a total cost in the area of $14,000. With this agreement, the cost is going to be more in the area of $11,000 total for the city rather than 14. One of the things that was non-negotiable with the Donahue Trust was that they wanted the monument to read as they have indicated. I know that there were some members of the council that were troubled by the term, I think, donated. However, I would point out that the original agreement signed by the city and the trust was called a donation agreement and referred to all this as a donation. And there certainly was some cost to the city, so it wasn't free, but I think it was a donated agreement. The most significant aspect from the part of the city is that by putting in this parking area and connecting the trail and paying for this monument, one, the Donahue Trust is going to contribute $5,000 to the overall cost. And also, they've removed the requirement in the original agreement that called for a first-class trail. And they're I haven't verified it, but Matt Donahue said that he had some discussions with Wagner and I think another contractor in terms of what it would cost to make that trail out there a first-class trail, and over $30,000 I think was what the figure was. And so the language that it would be maintained in keeping with the surrounding area. I mean, it's wild, natural, and so what I would envision is that a couple times a year, maybe in the spring and the fall, maybe the employee goes through the trail with a chainsaw, gets rid of any blowdowns or things that have occurred, or also if we get notified that there's parts of the trail that need some repair or are blocked. Typically that has, I've been using the trails out there for 30 years, and typically what will happen is periodically you'll get a tree that'll blow down and lay across the trail, and you'll need to go. We've done it privately over the years, just gone out with our chainsaws and cut it up and cleared it off. And moving forward, that would be a responsibility of the city. But removing the requirement to make it a first-class trail is huge. Once this is done, all of the contractual obligations will have been satisfied. We've already paid the money. The $90,000. The only additional thing now is this trail and the monument. The monument, our contractual obligation was to have something similar to what we've got for our other designated memorials for Murray, and those have typically been a rock and then some signage posted to the rock, attached to the rock. Would have been less costly than this proposal, but with their agreement to kick in the $5,000, and for tax purposes, their accountant has indicated to them that they can get beneficial tax treatment by having it going for the parking lot rather than the Donahue Monument. So that's why it's designated in here as contributed cost of the parking lot and not towards the cost of the sign. The only other thing that's a new item that the council hasn't discussed and may not even be aware of, apparently the road sign out there for Donahue Road is not in good condition and probably do naturally anyway.
County sign?
I'm not sure who's responsible. It probably is the county sign since it's not in the city, but we need to see that it gets fixed.
Well, the amendment to the donation agreement then is on the second page or the inside page, and what is the council's pleasure with that amendment to the donation agreement?
Can I ask a question before I make a motion,
Point of order?
please? I don't have the paperwork in front of me at this time. What was the cost of I know the boulder was free, but what was the cost if we were to buy the bronze statue or bronze plaque?
Mr. Mayor, the estimated cost was just over $2,900.
With that information, I will make a motion to accept the amendment to the donation agreement. If there is anything we can do with the road sign, because it is outside the city.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Droba, second by Councillor Jacksaw, to approve the amendment to the donation agreement with the Donahue Trust, which would accept the $5,000 donation to construct the parking lot, and your contingency if there is something we can do with regard to the road sign.
Correct. Mr. Mayor?
Please.
This is a long time coming. This was an issue actually when I ran for city council 3.5 years ago. So this has been going on for a very long time. It needs to be settled. I realize that there was some bad blood in the community, however you want to look at it, on this specific issue. It needs to be in the past. This isn't the greatest agreement I've seen. It's fine because we need to move forward. We do have a plan for the Donahue property. We just discussed earlier about getting it into the city for annexation. We need to move forward. This is a very, very old issue that needs to be resolved.
Mr. Mayor?
Further discussion. Councillor Jackson.
I tend to agree with Councilor Droba's sentiment on this. It's basically a wash, except for the fact that the $5,000 is going to the parking lot. And so we'll be, I'm just pointing out that we'll be writing checks for $8,100, and the $5,000 we're receiving will only be valued to us when and if we do the parking lot. So there is that part of it that,
Well, and I think if I understand it, the parking lot has to be done by September 21st of 2018 under item 5. And the monument shall also be installed by that date.
okay.
So delivery of both of those items is,
Did budget for the parking lot.
yes, we budgeted in both 2016 and 2017 $7,000 each. So we have $14,000 set aside to do that.
I think it's a wash financially. I think we should move ahead. I agree that we have lots of issues before us. This one we can put to bed here and make the best out of this, right?
Correct.
Further discussion. Now, I know that that a previous council approved this agreement. I think the word donation on the monument is an exaggeration, but and I guess that certainly I don't know if we accomplish all this by September the 21st or not.
Mr.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
We have an obligation to do the parking lot by September 21st. The monument, I've been told by Mark Trumpeter and Matt Donahue's aware, that's not likely to be here by September 21st. It is likely to come sometime in October, and there isn't, if it can't be done by September 21st, I mean, that's beyond our control. It'll go out there as soon as it can, but we do have an obligation to do the parking lot by September 21st. The city would have to pay a $4,000 deposit so they can order the monument, and under this agreement that would occur tomorrow. Also tomorrow, Matt Donahue would write a check from the Donahue Trust for $2,500 towards the parking lot, and then so the last half, our last payment on the monument would come when it's delivered and installed, and that's when he would pay their last $2,500 towards the parking lot. So both sides would be making a financial commitment tomorrow, and then the balance of those commitments would occur when it's done. As the attorney and also as a part of the committee that worked on this, it'd be my recommendation that the council approve this. I think it's the best we're going to be able to do, and we don't want to end up in litigation over if they make an effort to enforce the original agreement. Drag on for years and cost the city a lot of money. And it's a wonderful piece of property. Some of the language, the way it was done, probably isn't the best, but I think in the long run, that it provides some wonderful green space. The trails out there, once they start, we have a parking area and they're publicized. I think we're going to see a lot of use of that.
Councilor Droba.
If we have a deadline of September 21st, are we going to be able to meet that deadline? I mean, we have a list of things that are already planned for the summer. Are we going to be able to make that? We have Ted Brokaw, our street commissioner. Is that something that we're going to be able to get done this summer?
I think I had some input from Ted earlier that we thought we could meet that deadline.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure before we move forward with that.
And then to Councilor Jacksaw's question with regard to the defaced road sign, Donahue Road, does that go on County Road 152 or is it 115? Is that the one that comes from the intersection of Menards? I think it's County. Is that 106? I'm sorry. County Road, which road does that go on? And
I'm not certain. I bike out there every morning, but I don't look at the Donahue Road sign, so I'm not sure where it is, but I just, and that's something that Matt kind of added at the last minute. I just didn't see it as a big deal, and so if it's a defaced roadside currently, fixed, and I'm willing to go to the county on that and take.
okay, further discussion. All right, everyone understands the agreement, amendment to the donation agreement. Chair would then call the question.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I would vote no. There'd be being 3 for the amendment to the donation agreement and 1 against. The motion carries and the agreement is approved. Thank you. Move to the consent agenda, and have 2 items there. We have the 2018 license renewal for the Rainy Lake Waves Massage. And then item 2 is to approve the registration and expenses for the city attorney to attend the Criminal Justice Institute in Minneapolis.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilor Jacksaw to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Councilor Pearson. Question.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And I would vote yes. Motion is carried. Consent agenda is approved. Thank you. Item number 1 under new business is to approve the resolution approving the Rainier Recreation Club application for an exempt permit to sell raffle tickets, with the drawing to be held Wednesday, July 18, 2018 at the Elks Club. Berta Wilcox, if you'd like to come up to the microphone here, Berta, that would be helpful. And the Rainier Rec Club is going to have a drawing on July 18.
Yes, first I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, for putting me on the agenda at last minute. I got called over the weekend. We've been meeting with the Elks Club for like 3 months. Lindy did call me at 3:45 and asked if we could change the date to July 25th instead of the 18th for the first one. And what we're doing is we're partnering with them, the Elks Lodge and Rainier Rec. They only do raffles, so they don't need a full gambling license, which we carry. So we're going to partner with them under our rules and regulations. And since we're in Rainier, and we're by the city of Rainier, we have to get the off-site gambling permit approved by resolution through you guys to do the drawings at the Elks Lodge. So you'll see me again. We plan on doing anywhere from, we're not really sure, we're going to see how it goes this first July and August, and then we'll be doing more throughout the year. We can only do up to 12 by gambling license laws. So we plan on doing maybe 4 or 5 meat raffles, and then probably the same number of cash 50-50 draws or prize raffles.
Good. So under this resolution that we have before us, you'd like to have the change to July 25?
Yes, please.
All right. Council's pleasure with the resolution approving the application for the exempt permit. Motion by Councilor Pearson. Second. By Councilor Jacksaw to adopt the resolution with that drawing to be held Wednesday, July 25th, 2018. Discussion. Councilor Droba.
Is this a raffle or a tip board?
Tip board. The one on July 25th is a tip board.
Okay, so the only reason I ask is because the
Resolution should say that, yes.
resolution
Good
says
point, yep.
raffles.
Correct, yep. You're right, thank you.
Boards. And it's for a meat raffle, is that the plan?
So take out the word exempt permit,
No,
or
take out-
the word raffle,
Raffle and put tip boards.
tip board, okay? That approved by the maker of the motion and the second? Thank you. Further discussion?
If this is at the Elks, this is only like 4 Elks members to do tip boards? I'm just trying to get a feel for what's going on.
That would be up to them because they have community events when they do the cribbage nights that's open to the public. So that would be the manager at the Elks Lodge question if public can come in. I know public can attend if they're with the Elks Lodge member, but that would be a question for them. I believe the corn and brat feed, yes, absolutely, that's open to the public on the next one, but this one, we'd have to check with Lindy.
I guess, Councilor Droba, do you think that there is a limitation on a tip board only to members of an organization, or public is not, it's not open to the public for purchase?
The difference between raffle tickets and tip boards is raffle tickets can be sold anywhere in the community. You can have them sitting at a restaurant or somewhere else, and the drawing just happens at the event. A tip board is a completely different animal. A tip board has to be sold on location, so it's not available to people outside the area. It's only people inside the building, so therefore it would only be allowed to either members or their guests unless they're having a corn feed or something and they're utilizing different space. So I was just curious because this is different than anything we've ever approved before. We've never approved a tip board before.
Mr. Mayor, and what the rec club is doing, we could come and do a resolution or ask permission to have a site license at the Elks Lodge. They're not interested in the pull tabs, anything that needs a site license. We can do the raffles under our license if they are doing under 12, which they plan on doing. So for them to go through the whole thing of doing a whole license and the gambling license and getting a gambling manager, we chose to try it this way first.
And all of that makes sense. I'm just asking the questions.
Yep.
I know a lot more about this than most people do.
Which helps.
Can everyone hear back there when that air conditioner is going? Is it still okay? All right, just want to be sure you can hear. All right, further questions or discussions with regard to the resolution then to approve the Rainier Rec Club's application for an exempt permit to have a tip board with the drawing on July 25th at the Elks Lodge? Question?
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried. The resolution is adopted, and tip board is approved. Thank you. Item number 2 under new business then is to approve a resolution approving the Rainier Rec Club's application for an exempt permit to sell raffle tickets, with the drawing to be held Friday, August 17, 2018 at the Elks Club.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Droba, second by Councilor Jacksaw.
Can we change it, I'm sorry, to Elks Lodge on the resolution?
Elks Lodge? All right. Any
Thank you.
problems with the maker of the motion and the second?
That's fine.
Okay. So it would be the Elks Lodge at 215 3rd Street. And these would be raffle tickets because this is in conjunction with their corn and brat feed?
Correct.
Okay, further discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, motion is carried, resolution is adopted, and the raffle exempt permit is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Berta. Item number 3 under new business is to consider the Fire Chief and Human Resources Committee request to contract for professional consulting services with Michael T. Metro to analyze the fire rescue EMS service operations for a Phase 1 fee not to exceed $2,250 and authorizing signatures. Chief Manassa? Excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor. The ambulance service was tasked with some overtime, looking into some overtime and staffing issues, along with some of our service fees and revenue issues that we have coming up. One of the suggestions that came up through the Human Resource Department because of the staffing and overtime was to look into consulting services. I did find a consultant that is able to offer those services, Mike Metro. His proposal the proposal that you see includes a Phase 1. That was general analytics in the beginning, running numbers and whatnot. Phase 2, should we decide to go, well, should we accept Phase 1? If we were to move on to Phase 2, that would be a more in-depth study of more so how the staffing model looks, and could possibly include a site visit and a more in-depth research into how the ambulance works. What we're looking to do with this information is to maybe consider looking at different staffing models along with increasing our revenue and how it relates to Medicare reimbursements and kind of where we're making and losing money, so to speak, and get a better understanding of how we can maximize our revenues.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we go forward with the contract with Michael Metro for Phase 1 of $2,250.
Okay. Thank you. Accept the motion of Councilor Jacksaw to enter into a contract for professional consulting services with Michael Metro, not to exceed $2,250. Second to the motion.
Second for discussion.
Second by Councilor Droba. Councilor Droba.
I sat in on the original HR committee meeting about this, and I realized that we were going to contact this gentleman about possibilities of how we can do our staffing, and I'm all for it. It makes sense to me. The question, did he give us any information up front, or did he just give us this as a guide of how much his services would cost?
What we did up front is we did have a conference call. The people in on that conference call to start with were myself, Betty, and Brad from the financial side. He did a generic 20-question questionnaire to get a general understanding of how our service ran, get a general idea of how we operated, and then what our major concerns or issues were. One of the things that came up in that conversation, of course, is I guess if we had the knowledge on how to fix the problem, we would have fixed it, and we didn't need him. And of course, one of the things we looked into upon talking to him, or he came to the similar conclusion, is there's a lot of issues that relate to the International Falls Ambulance that are tied together, and they become a small staffing issue becomes a very large issue because of geography, the types of runs we take, the transfers we take with the distances and geography, along with money. So everything kind of balloons very quickly, and I think he was very cognizant of that right from the get-go. He was able to identify that right away, and hopefully what we get out of this is a working, get a good idea on how to overcome some of those challenges. One of the things, I think, to help answer your question a little bit, or maybe build on a little bit, is we're not the only ambulance service that's incurring these issues. This is definitely a statewide issue, if not a national issue. Mr. Metro is based in California, and this is something that he does all across the country. So some of the issues that develop on the revenue side from Medicare and Medicaid, they differ state to state, but they're all related. So the dollars and cents might not be the same from Minnesota to California, but it's all the same issue. So he does have a vast knowledge on that and how that system operates.
So a follow-up question, if we utilize his services, it's $2,500, not to exceed $22,500 now, and that's phase one. That gets phase two, then we get into a more in-depth study. When are we looking at actually making staffing issues that are causing us to lose money now? Obviously we have overtime. We are not either billing enough to on our runs, or whatever the issues are, that we are losing money in the ambulance. What is the time frame? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out where we're at.
The initial phase one, I believe in his quote, it does say 15 hours worth of work. Now, when he does that 15 hours, I don't think it was spread out too long. He was pretty energetic pretty ambitious on getting that phase one done relatively quickly. We did not go into detail on phase two at this point. Of course, we're only coming with phase one as of now. In the interim, which relates to item 4 on the agenda, with the HR committee, we have kind of adopted a temporary working schedule to try and alleviate some of the issues we're dealing with. So we've okayed that with both the HR committee, myself, Ken was in the meeting, and then the union that represents the medics. We've given a 90-day time period of a temporary trial, so that's how I want to say this appropriately. There's a few items in relation to the union contract that the union side is willing to forego a little bit for this 90-day period in an effort to make some solutions work and try what we can. The idea is that hopefully we get this analysis back within a 90-day period, so we have some hard data to work off and come back with some recommended changes.
Okay.
Further discussion?
We just have to have some clear information about the description of the financial problem, which phase one will do. Solve the problem unless we're clear on the parameters of the financial.
I didn't go to the follow-up HR meeting. What is the temporary schedule that we're doing comparatively? And I know that it's going to be a little bit long and drawn out, but I'm just curious on what we're doing now that we weren't doing a month and a half ago.
Overly simplified, we have 6 full-time paramedics. Prior to today, those 6 paramedics alternated 4 days on, 4 days off, so you had 3 on a shift. 2 of the medics worked a day shift, 1 worked the night shift with an EMT. When we had a transfer come up, we would call in 2 EMTs during the day, one EMT paramedic crew would take the transfer, one EMT paramedic crew would stay on the shift at the hall. What we've changed is we've added EMT shifts, so instead of staffing 7 shifts a week, meaning the night shift, we're going to staff paramedic EMT crews during the day, so we're putting on an additional 2 EMTs during the day. We've also staggered those shifts based on call volumes and peak call times. We have software that we can analyze that. So our staggered shift, instead of running a 6 a.m., 6 p.m., and a 6 p.m., 6 a.m., we're doing 3 separate shifts of a 6 a.m., 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and then our overlap shift is going to run 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And our thought or our hope on this is that we know we can't totally eliminate overtime. That's not a reality, but we're hoping to reduce it greatly. So a great example happened today. This is the first day of implementing that temporary time frame. We did send our day crew, our shift A, down the road at 2 in the afternoon. We're going to generate 2 hours of overtime off that shift, but what that prevented is, should another transfer come in, it should prevent a 6-hour overtime down the road if we get double up transfers in situations like that.
Then my question is if we're just putting in the temporary today, what is do you not feel like we should try the temporary thing out to see if what we've tried in-house is going to work before we start paying an outside consultant?
No, I think we need to go with a consultant. There's bigger issues that the consultant's going to answer, and a lot of that has to do with the Medicare billing and how we collect our revenues based on those runs. So again, to keep the discussion somewhat brief, overly simplified, what Medicare is paying on a run is less than it's costing us to send a run out. So that's what we're trying to overcome. So if we bill $1,500 for an ALS run plus mileage, so it works out to be a $3,000 bill, Medicare pays $482 of that, and that's it. So if it costs us more than that, we're going in the hole by making more runs. So what used to be a very lucrative business, so to speak, of growing the business, if you had more runs per year, that's where our revenues kept jumping, and that was a good thing, and now we're kind of coming back down. If it costs us more to go out the door than we're making, every run we add to the list is costing us more money, and that's why our deficit is increasing.
And we can't turn away any traffic. Correct. Because we don't know if they are, what their payment system is.
Correct. Yes, we cannot judge an ambulance run based on insurance or payment. That is strictly illegal.
I completely understand that, and we don't know anyways.
Yep.
Big structural changes, and the only way you know that is by getting this study done.
I think it's fair to say, and Councillor Jacksaw, please jump in, I think it's fair to say when we had our Human Resources meeting week before last, I don't think anybody in the room, meaning the HR committee, myself, Administrator Anderson, the paramedics or their union representation, I don't think anybody anticipated the meeting going where it went by the time it was done. It was a 3 or 3.5 hour meeting, and it evolved into something bigger than any of us in the room could have solved at the time, and I think that's a very good reason of why we need this person to come in.
Thank you. You did very well.
Chief, and this may be somewhat hypothetical because you're just starting it today, but I'm going to go back to Saturday of this past weekend. My understanding, we had 7 9/11 runs and 3 transfers. And you spoke to 2 transfers. What happens now if you get a 3rd transfer?
They'll send it,
in a shift.
And that's back to the original statement of we know we cannot eliminate overtime, so those are the situations where we know we can eliminate it. We're trying to mitigate it and trying to, well, just like today, we're fine with accepting a 2-hour overtime on a person. We don't need them working 16, 18-hour days is what we're trying to eliminate. And then coming back to work the following day. That's where we run into dangerous situations. We're expecting people to drive vehicles down the road at night, long hours, and we're really creating a bad situation the way we're up to date today, currently running.
Very good. Thank you.
This takes the pressure off for a while anyway.
Hopefully, yes. I think we're buying time with our temporary setup is what the thought process is.
Okay, further questions or discussion with regard to the professional consulting services contract? Hearing none, question.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and the request to contract is approved. Thank you. Next item is also yours, Chief, and that's to authorize the hire of emergency medical technicians to the Fire Rescue EMS Department. And you have a list of names there, being Andrew Barnhart, Lindsay Barnhart, Whitney Gerhart, Kyla Yeason, David Rudolph, Katie Kibblering, Donald Johnson, Lance Zook, and Sheldon Zook.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Again, just a brief summary on this. Again, with our temporary setup, we're going from, if you average out an average month, 7 shifts a week up to 21 shifts a week. That's 90 shifts in a month we have to fill from EMTs. The advantage to adding more EMTs is the ability to fill those shifts. For the current numbers we have, that would be 6 12-hour shifts a month for the EMTs we currently have on. That's a lot to expect out of people that are working full-time jobs and children and activities and whatnot. I think we're asking a lot out of our people at 90 shifts a month. The advantage to putting on these people, they are all trained. They just, most of them have just finished EMT class. There are 4 of them that are currently EMTs that are not licensed through us. I should say they previously got their license prior to the class we offered. Really, the only added expense we're adding to the service at this point in time is what we pay them for their time. And if we're paying 90 shifts out a month, we're paying 90 shifts out, and spreading it between more people is not an added expense at this time. So we're hoping to, again, make this temporary system work, and maybe we got lucky and found the answer, and if this works after the time frame, maybe it's something that'll stick. It's too early to say.
I would move on the new hires.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Droba, second by Councillor Pearson. Authorize the hire of the emergency medical technicians to the Fire Rescue EMS Department. Discussion.
Yeah, I have one question. That is that we need, this is tangential to that though, is we talked about restructuring pay.
I don't believe we came to a end all at that meeting unless I'm mistaken.
No, we didn't, but one of the reasons that, because got a new board quite a bit, that this might be an opportune time. So is that going to be possible to?
Well, I think that's a great thing that may come out of our consultant work that we're having done.
So premature?
Possibly.
No, okay. I'm just concerned about it.
I think it could very well come out of that. I think that is something that could come out of our consultant work, but.
Can I follow up on that? So I know the specific issue that you're talking about, and would we be in a weird position if we are hiring this many people and then saying, hey, we need to scale back your pay? I mean, after we hire them?
That was what?
I see your point, but it's, we do need the people now, but with that being said, it's...
I will say from this list of people, the one thing we have an advantage of, the 2 Zooks that are on here, they do operate under Lowman First Responders and Little Fork Ambulance. I don't want to speak for them openly in a meeting here, but I think they're coming on to help us out. I don't know if they're expecting a job out of this. We have a couple that are summer term employment, so to speak. Whitney Gerhart is a college student, so she's home over the summer months as of now. This is something she's done at a different location and wanted to continue with her license while she was home in the summertime. Katie, I can't say her last name properly, Killring, she's in a similar situation, possibly temporary. And Yeah, I don't know that that is a large concern at this point.
Fair enough. I just understand the point that Councilor Jackson was making.
Well, sure, be.
Okay, further discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried and authorization to hire is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Item number 5 is to consider the city position on the ownership of the wastewater conveyance system as recommended by David R. Oberstar, Legal Counsel to the North Kuching Area Sanitary District. City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, the Public Works Committee has addressed the issues associated with the letter that you referenced from David Oberstar, who is legal counsel for the North Kuch Sanitary District. He's identified and defined the terminology that applies to the sanitary sewer infrastructure system that conveys water from residences and businesses to the plant that's operated by the North Kuch Board and their staff. And we have prepared a letter that had recommended some responses to their letter. It's my understanding that the North Kuch Board is meeting tomorrow morning at 7:30 to consider what the other entities being the City of International Falls, the City of Rainier, and the Sanitary Sewer District, what their response is to these ownership issues that their attorney has brought up. And I see that Cindy Strand, the Executive Director, is in attendance this evening. And so what we've done to respond or provide a response is we've taken the memorandum that Mr. Oberstar prepared and we've inserted our responses in red ink on the report that was distributed to you today. And so we're asking that the City Council consider these responses. If there's any questions, we'll try and respond to them. And then ideally we'd like to have the city consent to those changes or with any revisions you see appropriate so that we can provide a response to the North Kuch Board that'll consider them tomorrow morning at 7:30. Attached to try and illustrate where some of these areas are and where the pipes run are some maps that were prepared by the Public Works Director, and they identify you'll see, for instance, the first map has a large A on there, and that refers back to the attorney's item A that talks about the EQ basin to the treatment plant and the interceptor line that runs between there. So we've tried to include some graphics to illustrate where these various lines run to try and illustrate what the on-the-ground issues are. So.
Okay, Council's pleasure with the position statements on ownership of the wastewater treatment conveyance system.
Can I have a point of information?
Yes.
Maybe it would be helpful before we pass resolutions to have our director of the North Kuch Area Sanitary Sewer District address the issue.
Well, I don't know that she's familiar with them either. I think.
Okay.
I think the committee of the Public Works Director, the Street Commissioner, City Administrator, City Attorney, myself. I don't think you were not present at that meeting. On inflow and infiltration are the ones that put together the responses.
I have nothing to add, frankly, and just this memo is what I'm familiar with.
Well, and I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think at least half of the conveyances the city agrees with. There are a couple that we have asked for a different position, and that's based on the ability to maintain. Some areas that we have maintained over the years that haven't been maintained by the sewer district. And then items G, H, or F, G, and H. There are 3 lift stations that are, how best to describe them? They are located in the Rainier and East Couchiching areas prior to the effluent getting to the ponds. So these lift stations are out further, and the position that we're recommending is that those should be owned by Rainier and East Couchiching, not by North Couch, because none of the effluent that's coming from those areas, and right now, North Couch is paying for the maintenance, the running of those lift stations, and they would all be, the city users would be paying 88% of the cost of that operation and maintenance. And so we're recommending that those really should be a part of the Rainier East Couch, that they should be taking care of the maintenance and the cost of operation, not the North Couch.
That seems simple and straightforward to me.
Well, there's nothing for those paying sewer fees in International Falls. There's nothing that they would be, I mean, not one drop of anything coming from there would be the city's responsibility. So why should we be paying for it?
I just have a question. We do have the executive director for the North Couch Sanitary District here, and this letter is dated today for us, obviously, to approve to send to her. Has anyone shown her this to at least have a rebuttal on North Couch's thoughts on the specifics?
This would go to North Couch at their meeting tomorrow. They may table it for further discussion, both with the city and with the other entities. I don't know what action would come tomorrow. I guess the only response I would say is that we would have sufficient copies for the North Couch board and staff for tomorrow morning. If the council wants to table this for to another meeting, that's...
Well, I don't know. It seems that there's been much work done at the city level. This is just moved for discussion to the North Couch Area Sanitary Sewer District meeting. And we do have to take a position. I can't take a position because I don't know enough about this. So I'm going to have to rely on the work that the city has done through their committees. And I don't think we're going to move forward to resolve anything unless we take action to at least take the homework we've done and bring it to, it's not binding. That's a weak endorsement, by the way. I'm basically saying I don't know anything more than what's before me, but I think it behooves us to move forward and support the work that's already been done at the city level for at least discussion. So I guess I would approve that.
City Administrator, City Attorney, your comments, please.
Well, I think the request was that from North Couch that we respond as quickly as possible. I can't remember if there's a deadline in there or not, but I think it's important that we get the position of International Falls to North Couch so that they can react to it. May very well be that they'll agree with everything that we've suggested. It may be that they'll agree with some, but there'll be discussions on others, but I don't think tabling it or delaying it would solve anything. There's been a lot of work that's gone into coming up with these positions, and North Cooch knows where the city's coming from, the better.
Counselor, well, I guess, do we have a motion, I guess, first?
I will make the motion to accept or to send the letter to North Cooch Area Sanitary District.
Okay, motion by Counselor Droba to approve the city position on the ownership of the wastewater conveyance system.
Second, but I would like to hear from our sewer director here.
Well, first, Counselor Droba, you had a point.
Well, it's just this. The original letter, as I'm reading it, was sent out on May 14th. Today is June 18th. It's been a month and a month and 2 days, and tomorrow this has to be there. This gives them no time to review it either. You know, before their deadline to be able to discuss it. So nobody other than our two representatives that are in this room for the North Cooch Sanitary District is going to be able to see this before the meeting tomorrow. So now they're going to get this, they're going to start going through, and now there's going to be a discussion on who owns what. However, no one had any prior knowledge to be able to have that conversation before the meeting or be able to. And I believe your deadline is coming up relatively quick too. Is that not accurate?
I think the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency would like to know where we are going with ownership discussions.
If I
Please, come on. Want to come up, Cindy, to the microphone?
No, then we get you on tape. And the rest of the public can be informed.
Where do you want to start?
Well, when is your deadline to be able to turn in the collective information from us, East Cooch, Rainier?
So this would be the 4th month, I believe it is. The 3rd Monday of every month, I speak to the MPCA and give them updates as to where we are in our progress. Coincidentally, it happens to be often the Monday before our board meeting, so when we know that we're going to have discussions at our board meeting, I work with the MPCA to explain to them, we'll talk after our board meeting so that we can give an update. So typically I would have an answer for them today, but they understand board meetings are tomorrow, so ideally tomorrow. Having said that, they are getting a little impatient on the ownership, but they do recognize that this is a big question that we have. We don't have a simple district.
Please, City Administrator.
I just want to offer the comment, and this is a personal opinion, and it's something I think that we voiced more formally through our response to the contracts and agreements when this issue first came up, is that is one of the points, the timeliness, that we raise as being supreme. When you have multiple agencies, you've got the City of Rainier, you have the East Cooch Sanitary Sewer District, and then North Cooch is the umbrella organization that has to get a response from 3 separate entities that meet at different times and different courses of months. Just logistically, it's extremely difficult to try and get 30-day responses back from anybody. We've tried to be very responsive in this. Our committee met a couple of times and talked about it. I just completed this memo today prior to our afternoon meeting. So I do not like to do business that way. I wish we had more of an opportunity for you and Councilor Droba in particular and the mayor, our committee representatives for Public Works to have an opportunity to look at it and edit it, and you did. But I need to make the point that that's one of our concerns all along is from the City of International Falls, is that the demand for 30-day responses by the MPCA is not reasonable given the structure that we have here with the number of entities. So, example where it's difficult to be timely.
Any other questions or discussions for
Well, I guess, I mean, maybe we're going to discuss this tomorrow at the sewer district. This isn't binding, this is a position statement.
I think the city attorney explained that very well.
I mean,
Yeah.
ownership back when and there's been extensions to the line and letter we got from the attorney for North Cooch outlined, based upon his research of current documents, who owns these various lift stations and other facilities. I don't think the dispute is as to who currently owns it, but we've got recommendations in here for changes that we think would be more appropriate, that the City of International Falls own and take responsibility for certain things, and that East Cooch and Rainier take responsibility for certain things. So by this letter, the city is suggesting changes in the current ownership structure that would make it operate better and be paid for by those that are more directly affected. And I think some of it's just the result of the haphazard way in which this has occurred, and there's been one extension after another, and it all has kind of been dumped in North Cooch's lap to treat the effluent and solve it, and I think some of the things ended up being considered owned by North Cooch, and back when these things were occurring, and I've been involved throughout the whole process, I don't think there was a lot of thought given as to, who's the actual owner of this lift station or this site, and I think it's probably long overdue that we go through this process to straighten those things out. And I know the city group put a lot of time and thought and effort into it, and to some degree that will require more direct responsibilities by the city and our employees, but we think that in the long run that'll help make the overall functioning of the entire district smoother. Rather than having North Cooch directly responsible for all these things and having to go out to the others, that maybe it makes more sense with the collection, focusing on North Cooch should really be focused on the treatment, and these other entities should be focused on their collection, and we should each be responsible financially for those areas that are serving our citizens. Nobody's fault. I think that's not the current state of affairs. So I mean, I think to operate better going forward, we need to make some changes in how it's been done previously.
Well, I think that there really is only one staff that exists to do the work outside of the city staff, and that is North Cooch Area Sanitary Sewer District staff.
Rainier has public works as well.
They do their own, okay. So Rainier in the city, but the East Cooch work is folded under the North Cooch staff, correct?
There's a contracted services.
Okay. So that arrangement will still exist.
Well, it may or may not.
Well,
that's up to North Cooch and East Cooch and so forth. In this letter and these suggestions, we haven't addressed that issue. We're just talking about ownership. The group felt that some of the things now that are considered, North Cooch, that don't involve the city in any way, directly ends up absorbing a significant portion of the cost of that, which our group felt was not appropriate. And so there are some portions where North Cooch is currently responsible that we're suggesting the city take responsibility for, and that our crews do the service and the maintenance rather than North Cooch, which if that occurred, it would free North Cooch's maintenance people to have more time to attend to East Cooch items, which are only going to get more and more with the expansion of the system. And so that's basically administrative restructuring that we're proposing that we think would be more equitable. Better job. You know, there are, at least as I understand it, and this is information I'm getting from others, there are sections of these lines and things that haven't been maintained and cared for as much as they should, and we think some of those areas can be primarily, if not exclusively, serving the city, and so our group thought it would be better for the city to assume responsibility for those things in keeping them well maintained, and so the whole system operates more smoothly.
And the city has equipment to clean sewer pipes and so forth, and so rather than having the sewer district go out and have to contract for that service when we've got a truck sitting here, we think it would be better. And if you look on page 2, there's a number of definitions there on an interceptor or a trunk sewer or a lateral sewer. If you can visualize the flow coming from Rainier and East Cooch comes into the pond, then you can see the 3 ponds up there about the middle of the map, and then goes to the treatment plant at the other side of the city. All of that effluent has to travel through pipelines to get over there. Some of the pipelines are considered, and rightly so, from the easements and the conveyances that the North Cooch attorney has, that some of that's been turned over to North Cooch, but they're really serving 2 purposes. They're a collector, at the same time they're a transporter. And so we think that given that the city has got, in some cases, many connections to those sewer lines, it makes more sense for the city to maintain those and keep them in good shape. So that's just some of the thinking that came from the staff and Public Works and Commissioner. And I don't know, Commissioner, if you want to make any comments with regard to any of this?
On the lines that are referred to that.
And that would be in question if we're saying we don't own it then, in this.
Correct.
If it were part of the city, why wouldn't we want it?
Because it's an interceptor. It ultimately goes back to the definitions according to our enabling legislation that's in the Minnesota statute that came out in 1981-82. In addition to all of the easements and the deeds that are actually put forth for all the lines that are in question in here, this document outlines, according to those 2 methods, what the legal interpretation is as to who owns what. So the biggest thing is the interceptor. So the lines that are laid out on here, running from lift station 8 through Rainier to lift station 7 to lift station 1, which is in Old East Cooch, to the ponds, and then ultimately all the way through International Falls to the EQ Basin, and then to the plant itself, is all considered an interceptor. And according to the enabling legislation, which is the Minnesota statute, interceptors belong to the district. So that's kind of the heart at which this lies. So anything that's an interceptor has waste from more than one entity flowing into it. Therefore, by definition, all those places that we listed, or that I just listed, are interceptors. Okay, I think think about it as we need to have a trunk that allows us to deliver our waste treatment from the furthest outline of our district all the way through to the treatment plant.
I'm concerned that Ted's concern isn't going to be addressed here.
Well,
I think he's outlined it in,
and to that point, and to the point of Mr. Chameau and some of his things that he mentioned, there has been a lot of confusion over the years as to who owns what. One of the things that International Falls has always believed that they owned was the flame lift station. North Cooch actually has a deeded piece of property that the flame lift station is on, but I don't know if anybody was even aware of that. So when we came across that, that was a big shock, I think, to at least me, because I'd always been told that the flame lift station belongs to International Falls. So these are the things that we need to justify and make right going forward so that we don't have this confusion, which is the basis for what the I&I work that we need to do going forward comes from, because we can't do any of the work until we understand who owns what.
okay. Further questions or discussion?
Oh, I have a question.
Okay.
So we send this over to tomorrow's meeting at North Cooch, and all this gets talked about again. What is the timeline now that everyone put in what they think they own or what they think someone else should take care of? I mean, what's the time frame that we're looking at on this?
It's as soon as we possibly can get it done. I have the responses from East Cooch and Rainier. They're favorable on this memo, so we're waiting to see where International Falls comes in, and then from there, if we are into a negotiation of sorts with International Falls, we'll have to work it out and see what we can come up with. The MPCA understands that this is not a simple matter, but at the same time, they're very anxious for us to make progress.
And I think everyone here wants progress to be made too. It's just everything we do seems to be so slow and drawn out.
We've been into this for a year and a half now.
I understand. I've been a counselor for 4 years, and I think it seems like that's how long we've been doing this.
Talking about it for 20.
Oh.
I think correcting inflow and infiltration is going to be a...
That's to solve their problem.
that's right.
Commissioner Brokaw has a point.
Yes.
And just,
Commissioner Brokaw.
I wanted to point out that, it seems like we've been moving slow, but, we
We are moving.
If any of you want to come and watch sewer videos with me, grab the popcorn, let's do it. There's nothing more fun. But
Do you have background music for it? I might.
But we have been working very hard. I mean, and it's finding the information, every different entity. It's time and a lot of money so far, and
And I apologize if you took offense. That wasn't my point. It just seems like we constantly are talking about things. So
Probably will be for another decade.
No, don't tell me that.
Sorry.
All right, further discussion with regard to the motion to approve the city's position on ownership of the wastewater system? Question?
Aye.
I would vote yes. Motion is carried, and city position is approved to go to the North Cooch. Thank you. Item number 6 under new business is going to be a little easier. It's approving a $10 increase to the boot allowance for employees required to have safety boots in the performance of their duties. And so council's pleasure with the resolution to move from $100 to $110 per year for employees for certified safety boots. Motion by Counselor Pearson,
Second.
second by Counselor Jackson. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
I vote yes. Motion is carried. Resolution is adopted, and the increase of $10 to the boot allowance is approved. Thank you. Item number 7 is to consider the rental service agreement for a 5-year term with Ameripride Linen and Uniform Services for the municipal building floor mats.
So moved.
Motion by Counselor Droba. Second by Counselor Pearson. Discussion.
Yeah, I just have a point of information. Why are we doing 5 years? I mean, that's what they offer, huh? Seems like a long time.
I would agree. Secondly, I wondered, and as I read through this over the weekend, I couldn't find, is there in the real fine, and I mean real fine print, is there a way to get out of the contract if in the meantime we wanted to?
There is, but Mr. Mayor, I noted that the agreement requires that we agree to pay, in addition to the amount listed, 50% of the average weekly volume for the unexpired portion of the term. So my recommendation was going to be to change it to a 24-month term, and perhaps, I'm sorry, it lists 6% cost escalator per year, and in my conversations with Mr. Gould,
So a 2-year term with a 3% escalator? Right. Instead of a 5-year? Okay.
part of this has been delayed. We talked last fall, but they've been purchased by Aramark, and so internally they've had a lot of issues trying to get their paperwork consistent with the two. Ameripride Services will be Aramark, but after the 60 months. My recommendation would be is to amend the motion and allow it to 4 months with 3% cost escalation.
Hold on. I don't know if we had a motion.
Not yet. Nope. Making a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Jackson for a term of 24 months with a 3% increase escalator. And was there anything with regard to the withdrawal then? We still would have to pay 50% of the remaining.
Yes, but with a shorter term, I don't envision that we would want to do that. I mean, we need the mats. We've kind of discussed that in the past. And, for
All right. There's a second to the motion.
I'll move.
Oh, wait a minute. Pearson, did you? No. Oh, Councillor Jackson moved on it. I'm sorry. I hadn't written that down.
Sorry, Mayor. I just said what Ken said, so.
I didn't realize this was going to be that controversial, so I just made a motion.
Okay, you made the motion.
I don't know what I did.
All right. Second by Councillor Pearson.
I did make the motion, but that doesn't matter.
had a motion from Councillor Droba.
That's what I thought.
Oh, we did?
Councillor Pearson to adopt it as it was written.
As it was written. Now, so are we amending the motion then?
Yeah.
I'm amending that.
Okay, you do that.
Okay. Motion to amend to 24-year term, to 24-month term versus and a 3% increase.
Good job.
Oh, I'll second that.
It's been a long meeting.
All right, we'll vote on the amendment first for 24-month term and 3% escalator increase. Question?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion is carried. Amendment is approved, and then the overall contract is Question?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, aye.
I vote yes. That is approved, so we have the rental service agreement for 24 months, 3% increase. Thank you.
Who would have thought that would have been the challenging one for the night?
All right, item number 8 is to consider approval of the mayor's letter to the General Services Administration on the port of entry.
I considered it. Can we move on? No. What action are we going to take?
Well, I think question whether or not some of the questions that I raised, and again, here was one where we got several weeks to respond, and the General Services Administration sent a report, and I believe it was just the city administrator and myself that received a copy of that, 65 pages. Going through that, found a number of places where it's going to increase traffic, 18-wheelers crossing the bike path, 2 different locations. It would also have the present property that Packaging Corporation of America allows the city to use as a snow dump. That would be eliminated, so we would be having to take and find another place to dump snow from the downtown area. Also, the bridge here has been designated by the Minnesota Department of Transportation to allow for special size and special weight items to cross the bridge. And I question whether or not the turning radiuses that are outlined in the plan would allow for that, so we would lose that business coming through the city. I think if you remember, there were many windmill blades that have come through here, and they're for wind turbines and other items that we don't even know about that cross. Also, it calls for a closure of the Burner Road. So there's just a number of things that I think are in question here that we need to have more discussion on, or at least more discussion with the General Services Administration with regard to.
I'll make a motion that we send this letter.
Motion by Councillor Jackson that we approve the mayor's letter to the General Services Administration.
Second.
Second by Councillor Pearson.
I just want to say I appreciate your diligence in studying this issue.
Reading the 65 pages.
Right. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Further discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, yes, motion is carried, and approval letter will be written by the administrator. Thank you. Item number 9 is to approve the audit of the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2017, as prepared by Schlenner Wenner.
Mr. Mayor, I am happy to move forward to approve the audit of our financial statements for the City of International Falls as Budget and Finance Chair.
I'll second.
Motion by Councillor Droba, second by Councillor Jackson to approve the audit of the financial statements of the city. Discussion.
Yeah, I think it's been go ahead. You're the chair of that committee.
I was just going to say that we ended up having a clean, unmodified opinion, which is the best we can do as a city. We went through everything. Our general fund balance went up a little bit in the previous year. Besides that, all of the departments worked well with the group from Schwinner, Winter and Company. I'd like to thank.
We were on budget.
Yeah, we were on budget as well. And I'd like to thank everyone in administration, Administrator Anderson, Betty, Brad Edisted, and the rest of our staff, Emma included since she's here, for working so well with the group to give us a clean, unmodified opinion.
Further.
I just wanted to interject, and I did, that we were on budget with our 2017 budget as well. I don't know if any other governmental unit can say that.
Further discussion, question?
Aye.
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 I would vote yes, motion is carried, and audit is approved. Thank you. And then we have the approval of the audit being submitted to the Office of the State Auditor and publication in the Journal.
So moved.
Motion by Councillor Droba,
Second.
second by Councillor Jacksaw. Discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
I vote yes, motion is carried, and submittal and printing will be done. Thank you. Further under new business? We'll move to reports of the administrator, attorney, and department heads. City Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I just had drawn your attention to a message that we had got from the Department of Transportation, and they're going to have areas of Highway 53 closed and lane closures, rather, not totally closed, to do some boring and just do some environmental checks required for the pending project coming up in 2020. So on and off, early this week, there'll be some closures on Highway 53.
Thank you. City Attorney.
Mayor, Council, I have nothing to add in addition to what I've already discussed at the meeting.
Thank you. Chief Maston,
Mr. Mayor,
please.
I've included in the back of my May 2018 activity report for the police department. You'll notice that as far as our training and conferences go this month, or last month rather, we had some domestic and sexual violence intervention training, Friends Against Abuse, which is real good. Officers, it was well attended and well received. Athletics officer attended the Minnesota State Association conference. Executed 2 search warrants, 582 calls for service in the month of May, traffic stops, 24 citations, medical assists, 13 arrests. And out of that, we generated 130 cases. Attachments that I've provided for you now, you can see the types of calls. It's a breakdown of the calls for service that we handle throughout the month. We're trying to find. You can see what calls the officers have been going on. And so that breaks down the 582 calls, but also even going further, down the 130 plus calls that have actually generated reports. And so you can see primary incidents we had to generate reports on as well. So then there's for you to review. I also included in here a copy of all the citations issued for the month. So we issued 24 citations. On with that is a breakdown of what those citations were issued for. So I think going forward with the monthly reports, the council will get a better idea of exactly what the department is doing throughout the month.
I like it. This is very informative.
Are these calls, though, connected? Some of them may be the same incident for...
Right, so 582 calls, we generated 132 cases.
Okay, I see. Okay. So basically, on average, you have about 4 calls that are connected to one case, on average. On average.
Depends, yes.
Yeah.
One's are different than others.
Okay.
And the search warrants resulted in arrests also on drugs.
In May, our search warrants resulted in the apprehension of 5 adults and the seizure of methadone.
Very good, very good. Further questions or comments of Chief Maston? Excellent report. Really gives us a good understanding of what the officers are facing out there. And how are the, now you've got, is it just one vehicle with a computer in it, or do we have several?
We have four main.
And they all have a computer in them. Very good. So the officers are able to put the information in right from the vehicle.
Yes, they're able to get real-time information as far as driver's license information,
Conservation Commission. Got a lot of tools there, obviously. Which leaves them out of the office.
What's self-initiated field?
Officer goes out on a suspicious, it's an officer self. All that they got, something they generated on their own.
Self-initiated.
Self-initiated, yes.
Okay.
Very good. Well, thank you for the improvements that are continuing to be made in the department and technology and all. Chief Manassa, anything this evening?
Nothing further to report.
Thank you for being here. Commissioner Roca, anything from you?
Not really.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to reports of the mayor, council committees, boards, and commissions. Anything from councilors? Councilor Droba.
Just a follow-up. So I went to the HR committee that we had the conversation with Chief Manassa, and we were discussing the issues with what was going on there with the personnel. And one of the things that came up at that meeting was that we were going to be doing employee evaluations. And I was wondering if at any point in the next month or so, if we could do the city council's employee evaluation on the city administrator.
Is that our only one that we do?
That would be the only one we do. So I was just wondering if the HR committee would like to work with Ken on a committee of the whole so that we can have that conversation. So if we're going to have the department heads do it, we should be doing it ourselves as the...
We can put that on our agenda for the month of July. So I have something to follow up. Are you done?
And then the one last thing I wanted to say, and I actually brought it up just before our budget and finance meeting this afternoon, but the Blandon broadband grant that we applied for, we did receive. We got that information this morning. There will be some more information moving forward as it comes out, but we did receive the Blandon grant.
And then what I wanted to say sort of segues into that, in that we had a discussion on CGI Communications. We tabled that proposal that CGI offered us the last meeting. And I did reach out to Small Town Tech and other entities. I think we need, and with the broadband grant and some monies at the library and some other things that are happening in the community, I think there's a chance to coordinate, build strength in our independent consultants in town that do marketing and consulting, and build a resource without outsourcing this particular skill set. But we were going to bring it back to council next meeting, not this one. But I did want to give everybody a progress update on discussions that have been taking place in the community since that meeting at the first meeting of June, right? That was the last time we discussed this. So I think it's exciting. It seems like the stars are aligning, and we have some funds coming together and some talent coming together to make some stuff happen. So I hope I'm not overstating it and building expectations, but the time has been well spent, and I appreciate the council's foregoing an immediate decision.
Thank you. Just a couple of items into the mayor's report. First of all, today begins the project phase 2 of the airport terminal, moving the weather service, the TSA, and the Customs and Border Protection into temporary quarters out there so that the demolition of the old terminal building can take place. So that starts today. And then I wanted to thank the street department Commissioner Brokaw for the great work that was done in preparing the grounds and taking care of all of the details for the U.S. Mint Voyager National Park quarter release. It was a great crowd out there. We had a beautiful day and the community for that, but everything looked very, very neat and went very, very well. And then lastly, received copies of the July 4th celebration. That planning continues to go forth, and we have one more meeting before the holiday, and so continuing to work on finalizing that celebration. Any questions? If not, anyone in the audience that has questions or anything that they would like to state to the council? All right, the correspondence was the Library Board Trustees meeting minutes, and then the next regular City Council meeting will be Monday, July 2nd at 4:30. If there's nothing further to come before the council at this time, we'll stand adjourned.